It's the end of 2019, and virtual reality has finally gone from a science fiction fantasy to a mainstream technology. Just in case you've been living under a rock and you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'll break it down for you. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, virtual reality, or VR, is the use of computer modeling and simulation that enables a person to interact with an artificial, three-dimensional visual or other sensory environment. VR applications immerse the user in a computer-generated environment that simulates reality through the use of interactive devices, which send and receive information and are worn as goggles, headsets, gloves, or bodysuits. In more basic terms, virtual reality is an immersive computer-generated environment, like the Matrix, which we're probably already living in, so let's not think about that too much. Virtual reality has a ton of uses, including educational and clinical applications, but the most exciting possibilities for VR, in my opinion, are in the world of entertainment. For most of human history, we've been telling each other stories, with artists, performers, and creators of all kinds working to immerse the audience in their stories. Virtual reality is just one of the newest and most technologically advanced ways of achieving that. VR as an entertainment technology has a surprisingly long and fascinating history, starting with the debut of the Viewmaster at the 1939 World's Fair. It was created by Wilhelm Gruber to replace postcards as a more immersive way to say, "Wish you were here." Not truly immersive or digital, but it's totally obvious today how this influenced the design of the headsets we use even 80 years later. Viewmasters are still around too. I had one growing up that looked a little bit like this model. Cinerama also debuted at the 1939 World's Fair, but it didn't become popular until the 1950s with the release of This Is Cinerama in 1952. It used a curved widescreen and stereo surround sound to create an immersive cinema experience. This technology was also used for anti-aircraft training by the US in World War II. Throughout the history of virtual reality technology, its entertainment applications have been inextricably tied to its military applications. I'm not a huge fan of this use of the technology, but it's worth mentioning. Cinerama set the stage for IMAX and more immersive cinematic experiences to follow. It also inspired cinematographer Morton Heilig to create Sensorama in 1962. This was the first 4D experience, which featured 3D visuals, a wide screen, motion, color, stereo sound, aromas, wind, and vibrations, which makes it more immersive even than most of the experiences we create today. In 1968, researcher Ivan Sutherland created this head-mounted display known as the Sword of Damocles because the processing units dangle above the user's head to avoid, weighing their head down with a bunch of heavy computer equipment. The Sword of Damocles is actually an example of augmented reality because it overlays information on the real world as opposed to immersing the user in a virtual world. But the head-mounted display design would be highly influential in later VR technology. And the Sword of Damocles was a great innovation in motion tracking to get the displayed graphics to match up with the way the user moved their head. In 1989, another researcher named Myron Kruger created Video Place, which allowed people to actually interact with each other's avatars in a virtual space for the first time. Some other immersive technologies came out in 1987, including Star Tours at Disneyland. Star Tours was a big innovation in immersive amusement park ride technology. It used a wide screen and motion to create a simulated spaceflight experience for a whole room full of people. In that same year, VPL Data Glove was invented. This was a huge innovation in gesture control, which would be influential in later VR, including the Nintendo Power Glove for NES, which came out in 1989. The Nintendo Power Glove was commercially relatively unsuccessful, but it helped pave the way for later gesture controls in gaming and inspired a lot of creators and gamers alike. The Nintendo Power Glove marked the beginning of virtual reality technology in the video game industry, followed by Sega VR in 1993, and the commercially unsuccessful but theoretically cool Nintendo Virtual Boy in 1995. Perhaps it was the failure of the Virtual Boy that led the video game industry away from VR for a decade or so, until interest was sparked anew by a Kickstarter campaign for the Oculus Rift in 2010. After being purchased by Facebook in 2012, for a while nothing new came from Oculus. I think people were more excited about playing immersive video games than chatting with their friends in virtual reality. Then again, VR chat is really popular now, so maybe people just hate Facebook, I don't know. In 2014, Google made VR a little more accessible when they released Cardboard, a stereoscopic viewer that turns your smartphone into a VR headset. It is literally made of cardboard and costs $15, making it way more affordable than a lot of other VR setup. VR Chat, which I mentioned before, came out on Steam in 2017, creating a massively multiplayer online world where people can run around and interact, inhabiting whatever kind of avatar they'd like, for better or worse. It is a lawless land, but I think that's what makes it fun. Today, PlayStation VR has also made virtual reality games really mainstream. You can buy their setup if you already have a PlayStation 4 and play games like Beat Saber, which is the newer, dorkier version of Dance Dance Revolution. It's actually really fun. I'm only throwing shade because I'm not very good at it, and some of my friends are way better. How are you so coordinated, Ricky? I expect that virtual reality games will only get more immersive and fun as time goes on, which is perfect because climate change, mass extinction, and terrible governments are slowly eroding the world we live in, and God knows we need an escape. Thanks for listening. If you liked this video, don't bother liking and subscribing because I only make about 3 a year. Okay, thanks, bye!